Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates. Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 18th of May 2021 which are put up for today's discussion are on your screen and the time stamping for the same is given in the description box. So let us start with the first article itself.
Now all of us understand the importance of optional subject in overall scheme of UPSC Civil Services examination. And if you're confused about which optional subject to choose, how to find the best teachers and academic support for your optional papers, and above all, how to prepare for the same during these difficult times, RAU'S IAS has best solution for your optional subject related problems. We are conducting optional orientation sessions on 22nd and 29th of May 2021, in which you can learn from the RAU'S IAS teachers about how to prepare for the optional subjects and how are we going to help you in scoring your best in the mains examination. The optional batches are starting from 4th of June 2021 via live online classes. Consider this as a call to all of those who wish to completely cover the optional subject by December 2021. This will ensure timely coverage of optional subject and then you can focus your attention completely on prelims from January or February 2022 and keep revising the optional subject till you appear for the mains examination. RAU'S IAS is offering guidance for political science, public administration, history, sociology, geography, economics and psychology from Delhi, Jaipur and Bangalore centers. In the description of the video, there is a link which you can use to register yourself for the orientation for the respective optional subject session. We at RAU'S IAS are committed to give you the best guidance and academic support to excel in civil services examination. Join the orientation and kickstart your mains optional subject preparation from a team of best teachers in the arena. Let us now begin the discussion.
So the first article in the discussion lineup is related to a recent cyclone which has hit the western coast of India, including the states of Gujarat and Maharashtra. The context of the article says that cyclone has hit the coast of Gujarat and the coast of Maharashtra. It was named as Tauktae cyclone and it had a peak speed of 210 kilometers an hour, which is very extreme. It is a pre-monsoon cyclone because monsoon has not yet started. It will start in the next month. And this has affected the supply of oxygens for the medical emergency in the country. Because on the western front, what we are observing is that India is receiving high level of imports of important medical supplies. And because of the cyclones, this medical supply could be hit and we can get a little bit of crunch. So what army and what the defense forces are trying, they are trying to divert these supplies from the eastern route and then distribute it across the nation. Tauktae cyclone is named by the Myanmar and it is named under the process which is established by the World Meteorological Organization. For North Indian Ocean, there are 13 nations which have the responsibility to provide names for identification of a cyclone. Indian Meteorological Department collect names from the 13 nations, combine it and forward it to the WMO. Why we name the cyclones? Just to make a differentiation among them. Tropical cyclones are the violent storms that originate over oceans. They originate in the tropical areas. Tropical area means area between Tropic of Cancer in the north and Tropic of Capricorn in the south. So this area, which is also divided by the equator equally, is the tropical area, and cyclones generating in this area are tropical cyclones. After the generation, they move over the coastal areas, bringing about a large scale destruction due to violent winds. As you can see, the speed of the wind is as high as 210 kilometers in this case, and because of the very heavy rainfall and storm surge, what they sometimes cause urban floods and they damage coastal habitation. These cyclones are irregular wind movement. It means that there is no regularity in their occurrence and their arrival. It is morely irregular. There is no fixed date on which a particular cyclone will arrive. They have a closed circulation of air around a low pressure, which is also known as eye of the cyclone. This closed air circulation or the rilling movement or the rilling motion is a result of a rapid upward movement of hot air which is subjected to the Coriolis force. The low pressure at the center is responsible for the wind speed. Well, we will see the entire process very soon. Before that, we should know that there are two kinds of cyclones across the globe. First being the tropical cyclones, which are found between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. And there are extra tropical cyclones. Extra here means beyond the tropics. They are also known as temperate cyclones. They are mostly found between 40 to 60 degrees north or south. They may even be below 40 degrees. They may even sometimes cross 60 degrees. And lastly, they are also known by the name wave cyclones. Well, we should know that the anticyclone is the opposite of what cyclone is all about. If cyclone is generated around the low pressure, anticyclone is generated around the high pressure. So in the center what we have the high pressure, and because of this high pressure there is no way that we will receive any form of precipitation. So when an anticyclone arrive at a particular geographical location, you will not find any rainfall or monsoonal conditions, because anticyclone is just opposite of what cyclonic conditions are. The conditions which are favorable for the formation and the intensification of a tropical storm or a tropical cyclone includes large sea surface temperature which should be higher than 27 degrees Celsius. So it is obvious that such cyclones cannot be generated in the Arctic Ocean, because the temperature of the Arctic Ocean is not higher than the 27 degrees Celsius. The second reason being the presence of Coriolis force. Well, Coriolis force at equator or 0 degree is totally absent. It means these Coriolis force which are absent cannot create cyclones, and that is one of the reasons why cyclones are not formed or are not constructed at the equator. Beyond 5 degrees, either north or south of the equator, the Coriolis force keeps on increasing, and because of this increasing in the Coriolis force and because of the higher temperature around the tropics, what we receive is the generation of cyclones. The next reason being the small variation in the vertical wind speed. It means that when the hot air is going upward, the speed at which it is going upward is not at high variation. It does not mean that for first 1 kilometers of height it will go with the 10 kilometers an hour, and at second kilometer it will go by 2 kilometers an hour. So there will be a kind of uniformity in which this air is going upward in the troposphere. The next reason is pre-existing weak low pressure or a low level cyclonic circulation. So at least we require some basic level of low pressure area in order to kickstart the formation of a cyclone. And the last one being that the upward divergence above the sea level system. Now, what all these conditions will lead into is that suppose this is your ocean or the water body. Now, because of the high temperature which is beyond 27 degrees, what you will have evaporation of the ocean water. And because of the Coriolis force and its impact, what you will have circulation of this towards the upper atmosphere. So this warm air will go upwards along with the moisture, and because of the Coriolis force it will go into a circulatory motion. Now after reaching the upper atmosphere, what we will observe that in the upper atmosphere the temperature is quite low, and because of the low temperature this moisture laden winds will condense and they will form clouds, and because of this and along with the circulatory motion what we will have is a cyclonic pattern. And the center of this entire process, or the center or the eye of the cyclone, will have the low pressure. With this, we should also know that classification of a cyclone is made on the basis of the wind speed, which is part of the cyclone. The current case in which Tauktae cyclone is undertaken, in this, the Tauktae cyclone will be classified between extreme to extensive cyclonic conditions or damage capacity. Apart from the formation and their types, we should also know the different stages of the cyclonic formation and later on their decay. The initial development of a cyclone depends upon what? Transfer of water vapor. Water vapor will be generated when the temperature is above 27 degrees Celsius. And the heat from the warm ocean to the overlying air by evaporation. As I have discussed, this is the evaporation which causes the generation of water vapors which move in the upward atmosphere. The formation of massive vertical cumulus cloud due to the convection of condensation of the rising air above the ocean surface, as we have discussed, when the warm air with the moisture reaches the upper atmosphere, and because of the low temperature there is a condensation and we receive the formation of cumulus clouds. The second stage is the mature stage. At this stage, the storm intensifies itself, air rises in vigorous thunderstorms and spread out horizontally at a tropopause level. So as I said, when the air goes up, it expands and spread out in the both directions. From the above, you can look it as a circulatory motion, and the center remains calm area. Once the air spread out, a positive pressure at high level is produced, which accelerate the downward motion of the air due to convection, and there is a upward downward movement of the air in the upper atmosphere. With the inducement of the subsidence, air warms up and by compression and a warm eye here means high temperature and low pressure is generated, which we have already discussed. The main physical feature of a mature tropical cyclone in the Indian Ocean is the concentric pattern, as I have discussed here, of highly turbulent giant cumulus thundercloud bands. And this is one of the reasons why states like Odisha and West Bengal receive very heavy cyclonic rainfall. At the final stage of a cyclone is the stage of decay. The reason why it decay is weakening of central low pressure, internal warmth, or maybe the temperature of a cyclone, extremely high speed, because when the speed goes down, the entire process also weakens. And lastly, when it loses the warm moist air. Now, when does a cyclone will lose the warm moist air? When it is not over the ocean. So when the source of the water and the moisture and the warm air is cut off, and when this cut off, when a cyclone enter the land, or what we in the geography call it as the landfall of a cyclone. Now how does this happen? Look at this. Suppose this is your map of India, and this is somewhere the cyclone has generated. Now, as per the Coriolis force and the rotation of the earth and difference in the pressure in the month of summers, the cyclone will move towards India. And once it enters the coast of India, what will happen? The moisture which was available to this entire cyclone in the Bay of Bengal, or maybe the case of Arabian Sea in the western front, will cut off. And once this is cut off, the cyclone will not be as intensive in the hinterland or the deeper Indian land. So the impact of the cyclone which was observed in the state of Odisha, West Bengal, or maybe the case of Maharashtra or Gujarat will not be observed in Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand or Himachal Pradesh. So these states will not feel that kind of intense activity of cyclone which these coastal states are observing. And this is the reason why cyclones are a disaster in the coastal areas of India. If you want to read more on the cyclones from the perspective of disaster management, I have provided a detailed explanation in the PDF or the Word file. You can check that, you can download that PDF from the description box itself. The basic reason for rising number of cyclonic activity in the Arabian Sea is the rising water temperature of the Arabian Sea. And there could be many reasons for this rising in the temperature. First could be, of course, your global warming. Second could be low influx of fresh water from the rivers. Third could be transfer of warm water from the Pacific Ocean. And you can add many other reasons which is actually causing the rise in the water temperature. But the basic reason will remain the same, that there is rise in the average temperature of the Arabian Sea, and because of this, with combined the other conditions including the Coriolis force, what we are observing is the higher number of cyclonic activity in the Arabian Sea. Now let us move to the next article for the day. So, coming to the second discussion of the day, this discussion is related to a recent decision which was taken up in the state of West Bengal to set up a new legislative council. The government of West Bengal has decided to set up a legislative council, also known as Vidhan Parishad in Hindi. A decision on setting up the council was taken up by the state cabinet, and the meeting was chaired by the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. Well, from the perspective of the UPSC examination, what is important for you to understand the constitutional background of how this legislative council is created, what is the composition, and related constitutional aspects. Well, number of times UPSC has asked questions on the Legislative Council, including in the prelims as well as indirectly in the mains examination. So in 2015, UPSC has asked a question related to the Legislative Council. The question was straightforward. It was based on the basic provisions which you must have read or you will be reading as far as Indian polity is concerned. So the first statement says that Legislative Council of a state in India can be larger in size than half of the legislative assembly of a particular state. It means if there are 100 members in your legislative assembly, legislative council can have 50 plus members because it is more than half. The second statement says the governor of the state nominates the chairman of the legislative council of that particular state. So both these statements as per the Constitution of India are completely wrong. Hence your statement or your answer comes out to be D, neither one nor two. Well, we will look both these statements in the discussion ahead. So, starting by the article 171, clause 1. Well, this article is part of your constitution, part 6th. As per article 171, the total MLC or the member of legislative council shall not exceed one third. So, by this statement, by this article, if we come to the question of the UPSC, the statement 1 become wrong because it was talking about half. So the maximum could be one third with the total number of MLAs or the member of legislative assembly. However, the minimum should be the 40. You cannot go below the 40. It means any legislative assembly which has a member of 100 and they want to establish a legislative council, so the maximum members they should have by one third rule is 33. However, they cannot go below 40. So what they will do? They will make 40 as the member. So this does not go against the article 171. Since Bengal has a total 294 seats in the legislative assembly, so going by the one third rule, the maximum numbers they can have is 98 and they cannot go beyond this because the word is exceed. So the maximum is one third. With all this, we should also look into the other aspect of the Legislative Council. Under Article 169 of the Constitution, it provides for abolition or creation of Legislative Council in states. However, the power is not with the state government. The power to establish is with the parliament. So parliament may by law, so we need a statutory provision, provide for the abolition of legislative council of a state having such a council, or for the creation. So whether it is the abolition or the creation, the power comes to the parliament. So if there is a council, it can be abolished. If there is no council, a new can be created. A single state will not have two councils simultaneously. Now, when a parliament can pass such a law? If the legislative assembly of the state passes a resolution to that effect by a majority of the total membership of the assembly, and means plus, by the majority of not less than two-thirds of the members of the assembly present and voting. Now, I have seen students getting confused in these last 2-3 lines on understanding these 2-3 lines. Well, let me make you simplify it for you. So, take the case that there are, suppose there are 300 members in an assembly. So, going by the two rules, first being the majority of the total membership is your 300. Majority means 50% plus 1. 50% plus 1 means 150 plus 1, that is 151 member should agree, should say yes. The second rule says majority of not less than, means it cannot go below this. It means not less than two-thirds of the members of the assembly present and voting. Some students might get confused that two-thirds means 200. Well, you are wrong. It does not mean 200. It means members who are present and voting. Suppose on the 18th of May 2021, from this 300, only 240 members were present. And out of these 240, all of them are willing to vote. So, the two-thirds of 240 is 160. And 160 should agree or say yes to the proposal. If there are only 100 members who are present in the council, the data is 60. So which of these two conditions are more stronger to follow or more harder to follow? Of course, the first condition, which is the majority of the total membership. So in this case, it is 151. There are rarest of the rare chance where all the members of the assembly would be present for a particular cause. We are humans. There are people who get absent. There might be some people or the members who are sick, who are not well off to attend the meeting. There are some members who attend the meeting but leave before voting. There are other members who deny to vote. So the reason could be anything. So at the end of the day, these are the two conditions which should be met. So if an assembly is participating, 151 members should agree, and if 240 of them are present, 160 should also agree. Both these conditions should be met in order to pass a resolution, and this resolution will be forwarded to the central government and to the parliament. Under Article 169(2), any law referred in the clause 1 of 169 shall contain such provisions for the amendment of this constitution as may be necessary to give effect to the provision of the law, and may also contain such supplemental, incidental and consequential provisions as the parliament may deem necessary. So the power to give reality or power to bring this legislative council into the reality lies with the parliament, and any change in the constitution in that regard is also made available to the powers of the parliament only. So state legislation do not have that power to create or abolish the council altogether. Under Article 169(3), No such law as aforesaid shall be deemed to be an amendment to this constitution for the purpose of Article 368. It does not mean that constitutional will not be amended. It means constitution can be amended, however, that is not part of your Article 368, because Article 368 deals with a separate kind of amendments altogether. Mind you, all amendments are not part of Article 368. You should be aware of that. Under Article 172, Clause 2, Legislative Council of a state shall not be subject to the dissolution. So, it is like your Rajya Sabha or Council of State. They are not subjected to dissolution after 5 years of completion of the period for which government is ruling. But as nearly as possible, one third of the members thereof shall retire as soon as may be on the expiry of every second year in accordance with the provisions made in that behalf by the Parliament by law. It means all the members in the Legislative Council can enjoy their duration for 6 years. One third of the members of this council would be required to retire on the expiry of every second year. That does not mean the one who is selected for the first time will have duration of only 2 years. They will complete the duration. Under Article 182, the Legislative Council of every state where it is existing, having such council shall choose two members of the council to be respectively chairman and the deputy chairman. Under the case of Rajya Sabha, the chairman of Rajya Sabha is actually the vice president. And in the election of vice president, Lok Sabha also participate. Whereas in the case of chairman, the legislative assembly does not participate. And when we come to the question of the UPSC, you will find that UPSC said that the chairman was nominated by the governor. So the statement was wrong. The chairman and the deputy chairman are elected by the respective members of the council itself. Under Article 183 of the Constitution, a member holding the office of chairman or including the deputy chairman of the Legislative Council shall vacate his office if he ceases to be a member of the council. So, if a member is not MLC or member of Legislative Council, they cannot be the chairman or the deputy chairman. As far as resignation goes, well, chairman will give it to the deputy chairman and deputy chairman will give it to the chairman. It is as simple as that. When it comes to the removal of chairman or the deputy chairman, there is a defined process. And the defined process says that the council and legislative assembly will not participate in this. The council will pass by a majority of all the then members of the council, and at least 14 days of notice has to be given to the intention to move the resolution. And here we do not have that two-thirds of present and voting criteria. So you should have this kind of differentiation among the different qualities or the different categories of majority present in the constitution. Now we come to the qualification to be a member of Legislative Council. Well, all the qualifications are same as far as MLA is concerned or the member of Legislative Assembly is concerned. However, there is one, and that is the age. So member should not be less than the age of 30 years. Now I want you to comment in the comment box what is the minimum age for which you can become a member of Legislative Assembly. Comment in the comment box. The election and the nomination of members of the total number of the members of the Legislative Council. Now this is the exact composition of the council. One third of the MLCs are elected by the state MLAs. MLA means Legislative Assembly members. The other one third by the special electoral comprising the sitting members of local government. So they will also select the other one third. Next is 1/12 by the electorate of teachers and another 1/12 by the registered graduates. It means together 1/6 will be elected by the teachers and the registered graduates. It is not a kind of a literacy discrimination. However, this is just to bring a quality representation in the legislature itself. The remaining members shall be nominated, not elected, by the governor having special knowledge or a practical experience in the field of literature, science, art, cooperative movement, and social services. When it comes to the Rajya Sabha, cooperative movement is not part of the criteria. Well, there is a simple abbreviation or acronym you can use for all these five, that is CLASS. So C is your cooperative movement, L is your literature, A is your art, S is your science, and last S is your social service. So you can use CLASS as your acronym to remember all these five. And in last, we come to the significance of the formation of legislative council. Why do we need legislative council if we already have assembly? It checks the hasty, defective, careless, and ill-considered legislation. Suppose the member of legislative assembly who are enjoying the majority in the assembly passes a very draconian law or maybe a very inhuman practices related law. So what council can do? Well, they can bring a check on that. They can go through that. They can provide deliberate discussion. They can raise voice. They can raise. They can ask questions to the ministers as well in order to bring more transparency. And lastly, the council facilitates representation of the eminent professionals, as we were talking about the acronym class, and also the experts who cannot face the direct election. Well, there are many people who are shy to participate in the elections directly, but they want to be part of the decision making and also the part of law making. So legislative council provide them the ample space in order to experiment their ideas and bring expertise in the legislative process. The governor nominates, that is the 1/6 members of the council, to provide representation of such members. However, there is one issue which is faced by the Legislative Council as well. Legislative Council has been mostly the rubber stamp kind of a thing. They do not have any power. In fact, the powers of the Legislative Council are in fact inferior to that of the Rajya Sabha. With this, now we move to the next article for the day. The next article in the discussion lineup is related to the recent move taken by the central government to call the GST Council meeting. The context says the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced the 43rd GST Council meet, and they will meet on the May 28th after a gap of 7 months. And we all know why this gap was created, just because of the social distancing. And I believe the social distancing was between humans and not the parties. Well, GST Council, let us understand some basics about this organization. Well, this is a constitutional body, so by default it becomes important for your GS paper 2 in the mains examination. It is a body for making recommendations on the union and the state government on issues related to goods and service tax. So whatever they will recommend, it will be based on the GST only. As far as composition of the council goes, it is chaired by Union Finance Minister, that is Nirmala Sitharaman, Minister of State in charge of Revenue or Finance, Minister in charge of Finance or Taxation, or any other minister nominated by each state government as their particular member. So there are three people or three kind of composition. First being Union Finance Minister, then Minister of Finance for State, and the last one being the finance ministers or the taxation ministers from states. As far as recommendation of the council is concerned, these are based on the taxes, cess, surcharge levied by the union, state, and including the local bodies, which may be subsumed in the GST. The second being those goods and services that may be subjected to or exempted from the goods and service tax. And next is the rates and the slabs of the GST, including that we have right now is 5%, 12, 18 and 28. Half of the total members of the council shall constitute the quorum at its meeting. It means if there are 30 members, 15 would be forming the quorum. Quorum means the minimum number of strength that is required to conduct a meeting. Every decision of the council shall be taken by 3/4 of the majority, which is very high. That means 75% of the people or the members should agree on a point. And the weighted votes of the member present and voting is as follows: central 1/3, state 2/3. Well, before going ahead with the issues of the GST Council, you should remember that there is a separate article which was added in the Constitution as 279A, and this article deals with GST Council. You should remember this because it is a constitutional body, hence it should be having certain provisions in the Constitution as well. So this article was added. I want you to comment in the comment box that amendment, that's constitution amendment, which was used in order to include this article in the constitution. You can comment your answer in the comment box. If you do not know the answer, just google it out and answer in the comment box. As far as issues of the GST is concerned, the first and the foremost being the delay in the meeting. Of course, the current meeting, which is going to be the 43rd, is going to be after 7th month of delay. Well, as of the provisions in the functioning of the GST Council, the Council should meet at least once in a quarter. The second issue is that many of the states have utilized or have demanded the GST Council to drop the GST on those supplies or equipments which are used for the current viral fight. Actually, the current taxation is at 12% on the oxygen concentrator and 5% on the vaccine. The next being the revenue shortfall and the GST compensation. In 2020, many of the states were facing high fiscal deficit. Some of the states were even close to 10%, which means they were high on their revenue expenditure. And this is the reason why they were asking for high GST compensation, which is provided under the GST Compensation Act 2017. This is a separate act which provides for extra compensation to the state. However, they were not receiving that, and this created the entire issue as such. And the last one being the dispute resolution mechanism, under which the Constitution says the GST Council can set up a mechanism to adjudicate any dispute between center and the state or between the state on issue arising from the council's decision. It is yet to be set up. So suppose if there is an issue between Maharashtra and Punjab, or maybe Maharashtra and Punjab together versus the center, or maybe all of them against many other states. So that kind of dispute within the council should be adjudicated by a different mechanism. However, that mechanism as of now has not been created and the issue still survives. So what should we do? The government should set up such kind of dispute resolution mechanism and ensure as a way forward to conduct the meeting of the council as periodically as possible. With this, now we move to the last article for the day. So now we come to the scheme of the day, and the scheme of the day for today is your MGNREGA and its related act. MGNREGA is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act and the related scheme. This act or this scheme was enacted on 25th of August 2005 and it came in being and enforced in 2006 onwards. Aim of the scheme was to improve the purchasing power of the rural people and provide semi and unskilled work to people who are living below the poverty line in the rural India. This scheme is functioning under the Ministry of Rural Development, so you should not confuse this with the Ministry of Employment. The objective of NREGA is not only to provide a healthy employment opportunity, but it is also working towards the development of rural India. This ministry also monitors the entire implementation of the scheme in associations with the state government. So MGNREGA is core of the core scheme of Government of India. It is also the central sponsored scheme. Hence, initiative funding functioning is shared between the center and the state government. The scheme was rolled out to the entire nation or to the entire rural India in 2008, and currently it is covering over 2.65 lakh gram panchayats across the India. The objective of the scheme or the MGNREGA is to provide legal guarantee. Legal why? Because it is a statutory provision. So it means it is backed by a law. So it provides a legal guarantee of 100 days of employment in one financial year to adult members of a rural household willing to do work or public work related to the unskilled manual work at a statutory minimum wage. Well, there are many keywords in these three lines, and we will look them one by one. So the first one is legal, that is, it is backed by the law. Second is it is a guarantee, so it is kind of a right to work. Third, 100 days of employment, not less than that. Fourth, being to the adult members only, that means 18 plus. Fifth, being the rural household only, and of course every rural household. So there is no inclusion or exclusion of people from poverty line, above poverty line, rich, poor, no matter what. Next is willingness. So it is also based on the willingness, it is not a forced activity as such. Next is the public work, so they are not targeting the private activity as such. Next is the unskilled, and that too the manual work. Unskilled means you are not required to have any prescribed skilled or a set of skill in order to be a part of this scheme. And next is the manual, that means there is no mechanized production of goods and services under the scheme. And last being statutory minimum wages. It means there will be a set of minimum wages across the nation below which government will not pay the amount of wage to the workers. This scheme guarantees 100 days of employment, which we have already discussed, on the voluntary basis only. As we have previously discussed, it is based on the willingness of a person. Apart from the group work itself, individual beneficiaries from the categories of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, small and marginal farmers, and also the beneficiaries of Indira Awas Yojana can take the benefits of this scheme. It means these people can approach the Gram Panchayat and can ask them to provide some labor for their respective work in their respective categories. Under the scheme, within 15 days of submitting the application or from the day of work is demanded, wage employment will be provided to the applicant. And the second one, that the right to get unemployment allowance in case those 15 days could not be met to provide employment. It simply means that if today is first of month and a person approaches the Gram Panchayat with an application to participate in the scheme, it means the Gram Panchayat will provide work to that person within the 15th of that month. If the person receives the amount of work he is demanding, what he will get, he will receive the wages within 15 days of the work done. Suppose the work was provided on the 15th of the month, so the wage will be made available on 30th of the month. So you can imagine it is almost a duration of 1 month from which application to the final payment of wages is done. And here I am just counting a work done of single day. So a person applied on 1st, he received work on 15th, he worked for 1 day, and the wage which he was getting was on the 30th. Now if he does not get the employment, suppose the Gram Panchayat says that they do not have anything to do. What government will do? They will provide the unemployment allowances. The variety or the kind of work which is permissible under the scheme is decided by the Gram Panchayats across the nation. So central government or the state government does not decide what kind of work is to be taken up in the Gram Panchayat. This means there is decentralization of the governance. The focus of the scheme is on the economic and the social empowerment of the women as well. Roughly, as per the government data, 1/3 of the stipulated workforce must be the women. So it means that if there are 100 people who are employed in the village, government and the Gram Panchayat will try their best to provide at least 33% as women worker. The work which is undertaken by the scheme is green and decent, so we will not find that people are working under the scheme or under this program to be polluting the environment. So working in a coal field or working in deforestation program or working in a polluting industry is not part of MGNREGA. And the most important part, that social audit is mandatory under this scheme, where people or the gram panchayat can sit together to go into the muster roll of the scheme, and they can see that how many people were given employment, how many of them actually got the employment, how many didn't got the employment, what amount of money was spent, how much money was not spent, so and so forth. It means what they are providing a kind of accountability and transparency. MGNREGA also addresses the climate change vulnerabilities, so a scheme from afforestation program to building your dams to building your small ponds to conserve the water, and also to protect the farmers from the risk and the conserve natural resources are undertaken in this scheme. The Gram Panchayat is the principal forum for wage seekers. So one who is demanding the employment should go to the Gram Sabha to raise the voices and make their demands. So whenever Gram Sabhas sit for the discussion, people who have any grievances can approach them and can take the redressal of those grievances. It is the Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat which approves the shelf of works under the MGNREGA and fix their priority. And lastly, we'll see that there are about 10 broad categories of work which are undertaken in the MGNREGA scheme. First one being the watershed management and watershed development, followed by irrigation, flood management, agriculture, livestock related works, including the development of fodder areas, fisheries, work in the coastal areas, including the reclamation of the damaged areas, and lastly being the sanitation and the rural drinking water. So your Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and the construction of toilets can also be undertaken in the MGNREGA scheme. With this, now we move to the last part of our discussion, that is the question of the day.